and welcome to the first episode in our new video series. This is where we're going to shine a light on careers and leaders in the insurance industry. Today, we are speaking with Catrin Townsend. We're going to be diving into insurance pricing, which is one of the most in-demand and future-proof paths in the industry. This is where analytics, technology and commercial insight come together to tackle complex challenges and drive real-world impact. I'm Stuart. I'm a pricing recruiter at Gerrard White Consulting. I've actually had the privilege of working with Catrin before. She is today's guest. Catrin Townsend, Director of Education at PriceWriters, a seasoned pricing actuary, author of A Risky Business, an introduction to actuarial science, and a long-time champion of insurance pricing. We're going to explore what first drew Catrin to the industry, the pivotal moments that shaped her career, the opportunities she's uncovered along the way, and what the industry must do to try and attract more women to foster true diversity. Catrin, it's great to have you here. Let's get started. Catrin, what first drew you to a career in insurance pricing?
I grew up in rural mid Wales, and when I finished university, I was just excited to work in London, to be honest. I hadn't really got insurance on my radar, but I managed to get an internship at a Lloyd's syndicate. And I did that for 2 years, not working in pricing, but working as a capital analyst. And one of the days, my manager, I think he just had a lot on, or maybe he wanted to pop off early or something, because he took me to the underwriting floor in Lloyd's, sat me next to an underwriter, and I was supposed to shadow this underwriter for the day.
Right.
And what would happen is a broker would come over to the desk and give lots of risk details. And the underwriter's role was to take all that information and try and give the broker a price. My role for the day was that there was a little mouse mat that he had with a table, lots of tables of information. So things like, if the oil rig is deeper than 200 meters, double the price. If it's in South America, do this to the price. And my job for the day was to put all of that into the calculator and pass that number to the underwriter. But I was fascinated with this mouse mat. I said, where do we get these numbers from? And he said, it's the chief actuary who gives them to us. And the way he said it, it was like this person was a wizard. Oh, the chief actuary. Chief actuary gives us that. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to be the person who puts the numbers on the mouse mat.
Fantastic. I mean, so obviously I know we've spoken before about your career and it's taken a slight twist, a slight change from what you were doing before. So you've progressed from your actuarial pricing role into a director of education at PriceWriters. So what would you say have been the key moments or the projects that have really kept you passionate about insurance pricing? And yeah, how come you decided to make the change?
I've moved roles quite a lot, often internally. So I've moved around different products. So, within one insurer, I started working on fleet insurance and then moved to small, medium business insurance, then property insurance. And in that moving around, I picked up loads of great product information, but also that kept it really fresh for me because there's always more to learn. And there's little quirks that each of the products have that mean you need to adjust the way you do things. You're not just cranking the handle, doing the same thing over and over. So that really kept it fresh for me. More recently, I've been working at a big motor personal lines insurer. Mm-hmm. And I've just finished doing that for the past 3 years. The reason I've decided to make a change is, to be honest, because I love sharing what I know. I love talking about insurance. And I think that the insurance industry really needs some relevant and accessible training, some training that is not just the mandatory training that you have to do every year, the tick box, CPD. No, we don't want to do surface level, dull training. Let's really get into it and let's have a bit of fun with it.
Absolutely. I mean, we were speaking earlier about all of the challenges that we've got in the industry, all of the challenges that we've got in pricing, how that role has evolved. And so what would you say have been the key aspects of your pricing work that excite you most on a day-to-day basis? And what would you say have been the challenges that have really tested you the most in your career?
I love a lot about pricing. I love that you are making a tangible difference to the business direction and the bottom line. I love the feeling that I'm winning. I love the idea that you're winning against the market or against fraud or against car thieves. That's really exciting. And yeah, the feeling that you're making a real tangible contribution to big businesses, big multinational businesses. I don't know of many graduates or many people kind of in their early career who would be coming out of uni and almost immediately delivering £2 million of business benefit. But at my previous role, I would routinely give my graduates that task. I'd say, here's a data set, find me some money in this, make a little pricing proposal. And almost always we would get a 7-figure business value on that. And in fact, one of the graduates, one of the people in my team, actually won a prize from the CEO. And this is straight out of uni within kind of 6 months, because her proposal delivered £2.25 million of business value. Yeah.
I'm hoping that prize was pretty good then for that amount of money. I mean, it's not just the industry and the business, but obviously you're impacting in everybody's life. Everybody needs insurance. Everybody needs car insurance. Pricing is a big thing, especially with the cost of living that's going on today. We were also talking earlier about the challenges within the pricing environment and how it's had to adopt different data processes. For example, data science adoption in pricing has become huge. I think it's such a varied career. You're looking for somebody now that not only has a strong mathematical and statistical background, but also is able to understand the tools that you require to be able to add the data science flair to the traditional actuarial pricing and all the technology challenges. But there are other challenges out there, and especially one being that there are very few women in the insurance industry. I think, you've probably encountered some sort of challenges being a woman in the sector. How have you been able to sort of navigate those and be able to achieve the career that you've had?
I think it's really important that we bring more women into the industry, but not necessarily for the sake of those women, but for the sake of the industry. Let's get the really best talent. And I think that there is some really great talent out there, either doesn't feel like insurance is for them, or doesn't know about insurance. I didn't really know insurance was a career. I didn't know actuarial science was, I didn't even know an actuary was a job. How do you even verb that? Actuarize? I don't know. I didn't know. I had no idea until I was just about to graduate and all my friends were applying for actuarial roles. So I think there's a lot of people who would be really good in the pricing space and in insurance, but they just don't know about it or they don't feel like it's for them. So I think for the industry's sake, for our team's sake, so we have really dynamic, diverse teams, not diverse for the sake of being diverse, but diverse for the sake of getting a really good job done. We're trying to sell car insurance, or we're trying to sell insurance to everyone in the country. Everyone who has a car has to have car insurance. Everyone who has bought their own home probably has home insurance. So you're not just selling to one type of person. Your customers are diverse. So why don't we make our teams diverse? And that's the way that we're going to really be able to reach a lot of people. And like I say, to get the best results. I personally learned coding about 4 years ago now. I self-taught myself to code using DataCamp, which I highly recommend. But I think a lot of people are put off by joining because they don't have that coding experience. It is daunting, but actually nowadays it's a lot less of a blocker than it used to be. With AI and ChatGPT, it's actually incredibly easy now. You decide how you want to structure the question, put that in AI, and it will tell you the code that you need. So although coding is really important as a skill, and I think learning coding is great. Any language learning is really good for your brain, as well as super useful. But I think that we shouldn't be scared of, I don't know how to code, or that sounds really difficult, because actually that's a lot less of a barrier than it used to be. I think some other challenges that the pricing teams have is that technology has changed a lot. When I started, like I say, it was a mouse mat that would get reprinted once a year. And now we are so far from that. Now pricing teams would deploy new rates weekly and probably multiple changes weekly. Whereas it used to be once a year, and that was job done. And then the rest of the year you were gearing up for the next change. Whereas, it's so much more dynamic now. And there's so many more methods now. I remember some big projects in my career, building the first generalized linear model for Allianz Commercial, the first generalized linear model in commercial fleet in the UK. And that was quite daunting. How do you build, you're building something that's never been built before.
Yeah, exactly.
And the same with gradient boosted models, first machine learning deployment that AXA Retail ever had. And each time it's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
I think often women are socialized to feel like they can't do it because so many people over their lives have told them they can't do it. I think that sometimes we tell men that they're naturally good at things. I remember at school being often told that one person in my class was, he's really good at maths. He's naturally good at maths. And Catrin, she works really hard. And I did work hard, but so did he.
Yeah,
and I think that there's a lot more that we can do to make it a really encouraging space for women to want to join. And that's not just women. I think, like I say, it's about diversity of thought, and that encompasses your own background, but also things like, is your whole team made of Red Brick University graduates or Oxbridge graduates? Are they all 24-year-olds who live in Croydon? Do they all support Liverpool? Do they?
Everybody's coming with the same approach and the same angle to a problem, which doesn't help necessarily solve that problem.
Yeah, and bringing in more people who are working class, whose parents weren't actuaries. Yeah. I think all of this diversity really helps our teams, and it's gonna be what pushes us forward. And the other big challenge in insurance is that for pricing, it's such an important role. It is really the driver of the business. If your pricing's wrong, your business is going to fail. So I think that's the joy. That's also the challenge.
Yeah, sure.
And it can be stressful, and it can feel like you're dealing with a lot of uncertainty, particularly when you're tackling these new technologies and projects. The buzz of delivering that, £2 million proposal, the buzz of seeing it live in the market and actually seeing what you're creating change the market and like you say, affect customers for good is so... It's so powerful. I can't describe that buzz. That's a really good day.
I get excited listening to you. Your voice is elevated. You're excited about this industry. I think schools and universities have been working quite hard to try and get more females into that STEM education in the first place. Those individuals that have done that qualification and make them aware of the superb careers you can have within insurance, especially within insurance pricing. So obviously, since you began your career, how do you feel that the pricing profession has evolved? And I guess what sort of challenges have you seen in your role? And what do you think, as we're moving into the next 5 or 10 years, especially around data automation, DE&I, as we just sort of touched upon, what do you think the challenges are that you've seen? And what do you think the challenges are going to continue to be over the next 5 to 10 years in pricing and insurance?
Mm-hmm. I would probably summarize it by saying more data, more problems. The more data you have, the more model choices you have, the more you can bring in machine learning techniques, the more deployments you're going to want to make. So it's this speed that has really accelerated.
Sure.
To something that makes the pricing work almost in some senses unrecognizable to what it was when I first started with a mouse map. I think going forward, the industry has tried the purely data science technique, really relying heavily just on data scientists and black box models and hoping that machine learning will solve all the problems. And it hasn't worked.
No.
And it hasn't worked. And the reason it hasn't worked is because it's a product that's being sold to human beings who have their own idiosyncrasies, and each product is slightly different, and data science doesn't capture that complexity. I think it's really important that pricing professionals of today and tomorrow really know their product. They really know cars if you're doing motor, or you really love puppies if you're doing pet insurance.
We were talking earlier about you seeing cars in a car park and being able to identify which ones might be higher risk than others, and the problems with some cars. Yeah. We mentioned the Range Rover and how that's the bane of a lot of pricing professionals' lives at the moment. And there's so many other elements to it.
Yeah, although data is the fuel of what we do, the industry doesn't just need people to run the numbers and then, call a job done, because that's what a computer does. And the computer will increasingly do that going forward. What the industry needs is people who can spot the issues with what the computer provides, who can really dig in, really get deep with it. Why does this not work? Why is this not performing as I expect? What are the problems with this model? And what are the future trends? Because remember, data is always backwards looking.
Yeah,
it's like driving.
Historical.
It's like driving your car, looking in the rearview mirror. What we want to do is price for the future, and that means looking at new cars that are coming out on the market and saying, "I've got zero data on this, but here's what I'm going to do," and making sensible proposals for that. So, pricing professionals don't just have to be great coders, although we welcome great coders. That's amazing. It's also about being able to make decisions when there's a lot of uncertainty and try and just have a bit of common sense. Because that's what a computer doesn't have.
You can't program common sense.
No. And you can't program soft skills either. So as pricing teams grow, as we grow from having, a team of 5, it used to be a couple of people when I first joined. Now some pricing teams are 120 people.
It's huge.
It's huge. And being able to collaborate and communicate with all those people, that soft skill is going to be something that you can't automate, but it's also going to be what sets pricing professionals apart.
Okay. I mean, from obviously what we were talking about there in terms of not just women coming into the pricing industry, there's a skill shortage at that early funnel, as we're well aware. And it is something that we are looking to try and address with our academy that you're going to be helping run for us. I just thought it'd be good for us to take a little bit of time to tell some of the viewers and the listeners today about what it is that we're trying to do here. So we are creating a pricing academy that is hopefully going to be able to churn out some fantastic pricing professionals that are well equipped to be able to go into an insurance firm with the core skill set they need to be able to start adding some value. So talk to us a little bit about that route that you see and how that might help people get started in an insurance career.
There's a lot to know about insurance and pricing, but if I'm honest with you, all of that can be taught. You can pick that up when you join. And that's part of the purpose of the academy, right? Is to give people that knowledge, whether that is about different types of statistical models, whether it's about the product itself, or just the weird quirks of insurance, because there are quite a lot of them, as with any industry that's been going for hundreds of years. So all of that stuff can be taught. What I think is really important for people joining the industry is to bring a positive attitude, bring lots of energy, because you're going to need it. For all it's like I say, it's fast paced and it's exciting. So positive attitude and lots of energy. You can't teach that. That's always
the learning curve's really steep at the start, isn't it?
Yeah. But if all you've got is a good attitude and good energy, then that is gonna really help you. And the other thing is maybe to be interested and interesting. Interested in what we do, why things are how they are, but also interesting in bringing your past experience, whatever that is, to your role, being able to apply that into your role. So there's so much creativity in modelling. I think people sometimes see building statistical models as just put it in the computer and that's the answer. Then you can't just rely on the data. You actually have to adjust your model to consider those future possibilities. And so there's a lot of creativity in that. Models are really just an expression of your opinion.
That's a great way of putting it. It's absolutely right, yeah.
Data-led, hopefully, but it's just an expression of your opinion. And so I think there's so much creativity in there, and we love people who can bring that. But also bring in your experience and passion in whatever you love, being able to apply that. So whether that's as a coder, and you love Kaggle competitions, whether it's an environmentalist and you have a lot to add on flooding, for example, if you're a petrol head, if you can spot a Land Rover from a mile off, if you love pets and you would be amazing in pet insurance, or just someone, if you're someone who loves maps. I love a good graph. Do you love a good graph? I love a good graph.
Yeah.
Love a good graph. Whatever it is, there are so many facets to insurance.
Yeah.
And there are so many different pricing roles and different insurance products. So being able to blend what you love to do, and your own perspective, blending your own perspective with everything you're learning in the Pricing Academy, which will be a lot of great technical skills, all of these different types of models, lots about insurance products. Being able to blend that together is going to really set you up for success in your career.
It's a really varied role, isn't it? You're going to get to use historical data to try and predict future trends. You're going to get to use the latest technologies to help you be able to build those models and extract that data. But also, like you say, this is where the human element comes in. You've got to understand the product. You've got to understand the market and the dynamics of everything. And after all of that, you've got to make sure that you're able to be profitable, maintaining also the risk as well, and making sure that the risk reward is there. So it's a really challenging career, a really rewarding career. And there's so many different aspects to a pricing role that probably many people who have at university now just don't understand the varied, challenging, exciting, interesting topic that is insurance pricing. So Catrin, your book, A Risky Business, An Introduction to Actuarial Science. Can you tell us what that's about?
Well, it's an introduction to actuarial science, does what it says on the tin. I wrote this book because I realized that not many people understand insurance. Not even people who work with actuaries, for example. Not many people understand what actuaries do. And that's whether you work with actuaries, whether you want to be an actuary, whether you live with actuaries. It's really difficult to know what they do. And until you start the career path of actually becoming one, it's very difficult to find much information about it. What does an average day look like?
Yeah.
And why do we need actuaries? How do they do what they do, and why? And so I started writing this book. Mostly it came out of phone conversations with my dad.
Oh, okay.
I would chat to him on the phone, and he would say, "So what did you do at work today? Why would you do that?" And one day, we have a lot of these conversations. And one day he said, "Catrin, what is a model?" And I realized, he has no idea, even the basics. And, we've been talking about this for years. Yeah. So it felt really important to me to write something that I could share with him, a layman, not someone who is in the industry.
Yeah.
Because, it's really hard to find that information. And, we're not a cult. You shouldn't have to join to find out about what we do. So it became really important to me to write this book. And I have set it out as a bit of a buffet. So it's 19 chapters, which seems like a lot, but read them in any order. It's a pick a mix. It's whatever order you like. And each one is like a little burst, just a really quick rundown of what actuaries might do in that sector. So there's a chapter on pensions and a chapter on pricing and a chapter on floods and natural catastrophes, a chapter on biodiversity, and there's even a chapter on how to become an actuary if you really want to be. And the book is not just for people who want to be an actuary. Even if you just want to find out what they do to validate your life choices, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to make something that was accessible to people, because I think that it's really important.
Yeah. Insurance
is so important to society. I actually think it's one of the markers of a civilized society, because without insurance, without pensions, you wouldn't own a house or you wouldn't drive a car. You certainly wouldn't set up a business or build an oil rig or a wind farm or anything. So it's so important to society. And I really wanted to show people that what actuaries do makes such a big difference. It's really interesting nowadays because actuarial science used to be actuaries used to be the main people doing pricing, and we've really seen a move away from that, which is great that pricing is opening out so much. But I do think there's still a big role for actuaries, but also for more people to understand what actuaries do. If you're not becoming an actuary yourself, then you should at least probably know what they should be doing. So I think
so would you say your book is not just for actuaries? Could I read it and understand what it... Oh, great, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Do you know what my mother-in-law's read it?
Oh, right, okay.
That's nothing against my dad has read it, my grandma read it. It's not meant for actuaries. My goodness, no.
It's actually, okay.
It's meant for anyone but actuaries. If you work with actuaries, do you really know what they do?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah.
And you might know what a pensions actuary does. You might know what a life insurance actuary does, but do you really know what an actuary who's working on social care does? Or, the COVID models, for example. There's so many different types of actuary that I wanted to write a bit of a pick and mix that kind of shows all the great things that they could do. But whether that's with a view to you becoming one yourself or just to inform yourself of what they're doing, I think insurance is so important. And that's actually, when I wrote that book, I didn't realize I was going to be starting in a role like this to tell more people about insurance. I think it's so important to have this conversation. I'm so excited to be on this podcast to tell more people about insurance.
Fantastic. Really shining a light on the industry, on what you do, how we do it. We're now going to be starting to help people get into this industry as well. So, A Risky Business, Introduction to Actuarial Science is something that obviously I'm now going to read so I can actually understand more about what Catrin does. So thank you very, very, very much for being my first ever guest on this video series. It's been absolutely lovely to hear from you. We're going to be working obviously a lot more closely as the Academy really drives things forward. So everybody, Catrin Townsend, thank you very much.